This video is sponsored by Knuckles OX, Baba Snake, Julio the Boy, Blazing Darkness G, and Danny Mash X. Our story resumes as Sigma Alpha 2 heads due south over the city. They're en route, and everything is a go. That is, until a pair of voices ring out over the rotor blades, as one complains about this being a low-budget flight, while the other concurs, bemoaning the lack of food or movies. Paying the whinings of the prisoners no mind, the pilot chooses to ignore this. That is, until the third brother's voice speaks up quite grouchily, claiming that he's sick of playing nice, and that he's out of here, followed promptly by a bang, as he punches the cargo hold door cleanly off his hinges. Following Knuckles' lead, Sonic and Tails waste no time incapacitating the gun soldiers on board, before subsequently grabbing the door Knucks broke, along with those of the pilot and passenger side, and leaping to freedom, so that it is a trio of jury-rigged snowboarders who escape into the city. Due to this being a new pastime to them all, some accidents do happen, as they initially crash into a few parked cars, much to Knuckles' shame, as he muses that unlike the crime they were captured for, this actually is their fault, and a mark on their honor and pride. While thoughtfully, Tails muses whether that sort of property damage would fall under diplomatic immunity, which they should technically have, as the heads of Angel Island, negating their arrest as well, by the way. Though looking behind them, Sonic suggests his bros try telling it to those guys, as an armored gun truck roars into view and begins chasing them down. Not wanting to cause any more damage, figuring they cannot run something like that on these boards, and not wanting to cause more damage by destroying the truck, Tails gets an idea, telling Sonic to jump onto Knucks' board, while he does likewise, before instructing his eldest adopted brother to grab onto their discarded boards and hold his hands out wide. Trusting wholeheartedly in the fox and his plans, Sonic and Knuckles obey without hesitation. Then when they are in position, Miles Prower moves to the front and begins spinning his propeller tails. Seeing what his bro is planning, Sonic moves to the back and kicks off with a boost at top speed, with this being exactly what is needed to send their makeshift plane into the sky and out of gun's reach, while laughing, joking, and musing if they could form a car or boat together as well, since this experience as a whole is making the twin-tailed fox mechanic's desire for more toys and gadgets to tinker with grow a lot stronger. Unfortunately, this can only last for so long, meaning that as night falls, Team Guardian touch down, figuring they've covered enough ground that their pursuers won't find them, though as they will soon be reminded, Gun are not the only ones that they have to be concerned with, as a small distance away, they hear a commotion, which turns out to be that black and red hedgehog, Shadow, engaged in a battle with a gun mech. Thanks to having the green Chaos Emerald, he easily dismantles the machine, with Sonic having to admit to and admire his speed, Knuckles his strength, and Tails his strategic movements and use of the Chaos energy, though evidently, the feeling isn't mutual, as catching the sight of them across the wreckage, the faker growls that he thought he already beat it into them to stay out of this, since he's sick of looking at them. Smirking slightly, Sonic retorts that they don't like his ugly mug either, but he's got that emerald, so unless he feels like handing it over, they're not done here. A claim which makes Shadow scowl that they truly have no idea what they're dealing with, since these emeralds contain ultimate power, and he is the ultimate life form, created to wield them with the pinnacle of ultimate mastery. In a dismissive tone, Knuckles retorts that the ultimate Big Mouth would be more accurate, as stepping forward, he attempts to engage Shadow once again. However, it seems the Black Hedgehog had meant what he said about being done with them, as choosing not to engage this time, he chaos controls away, leaving the trio frustrated, though as they soon realize, Shadow's departure may not have been entirely about them, as a second later, gun trucks and police cars surround them, forcing Team Guardian to surrender once again. This time, no screw-ups are tolerated, as the platoon sent to apprehend the entirety of Team Guardian is far larger, better trained, and higher ranking than the cannon one which was deployed for Sonic alone, with them being brought to Prison Island as intended. Though fortunately, they are not held there for long, as the following morning, not one, but three familiar faces descend from a hole in the roof: Amy, Cream, and Big. In a tone of shock, Tails asks what they're doing here, to which Amy reveals that she'd had one of her chaos divination visions of them being captured, and figuring she'd need some help busting them out, she gathered a few friends of her own, since she's learned from watching them that teamwork really does make the dream work. She did consider recruiting Chaos too, but when she visited Angel Island, he was holding off a bat lady who was trying to steal the Master Emerald. Luckily, she was able to help him drive the interloper off, but the water deity decided to stay behind just in case she decided to come back. Seeing the sense in this, the brothers stand back, as Amy and Big prepare to smash the bars of their cell, though before they can, alarms start blaring, with Cream questioning if this is for them. Though shaking his head, Knuckles replies that it can't be, so something else must be going on. As it turns out, this is the Villianous trio's attack on the Prison Island, with Amy and the rest of Team Rose heading out into the open to assist Gun, since even if they are jerks, they're better than Eggman, who is wreaking havoc with his mech, while Team Guardian make their way through the hole Amy came in through, since until they clear their names, whatever these guys think they did, it's simply best to stay out of sight. However, even while skulking, they are still on alert, with Sonic spotting what looks like a Chaos Emerald in gun custody through one of the grates, a fact Knuckles and Tails confirm a moment later, as they drop down into what appears to be a cargo room, though where Chaos Emeralds are, a certain bat is never far behind. behind. As sauntering her way in like she owns the place, the chiropteran temptress introduces herself as Rouge, before coyly asking if one of these big strong boys would be so kind as to bring her emerald over to her. While in canon, this flirtatiousness might have flustered Knuckles, thanks to his years spent with Amy on Little Planet, as well as having Sonic the shameless flirt as an adopted brother. The echidna is far more at ease with the fairer sex, and so simply smirks back that he doesn't play fetch, but she is welcome to try and take it, since he doesn't bite unless he's asked to. Grinning that she loves a man who's willing to play rough, Rouge lunges for the gem, though showing why he's still the fastest thing alive. Sonic deftly zips in, and grabs it before he and Knucks grab onto Tails and are lifted back into their vent, with Knuckles actually chuckling at her expense and leaving Rouge frustrated and unsatisfied. From here, it is child's play to sneak into the jungle surrounding the prison, though it seems they aren't done with unwelcome faces, as it is not long at all before they cross paths with Shadow again, and whom is a part of the Infiltration alongside Rouge and Eggman. And since the brothers now have something he wants, there'll be no ignoring them this time. Recognizing that keep away is the name of the game, Sonic engages Shadow first, tossing the end with the Tails for safekeeping, as he and his dark doppelganger clash in a flurry of speedy punches and kicks. Even in the short time since their last fight, it is clear that the blue blur has grown and adapted, since he is after all a more seasoned and disciplined warrior than his canon counterpart. It's putting the new experience he's gained since the escape into use. He is actually able to push Shadow a bit, even without his brother's help. However, the ultimate life form isn't here for a fight, and so Chaos controlling away from Sonic, he attempts to strike Tails from behind, only for the Fox Boy to be more than ready, as he deftly sidesteps the hit, then passes the gem to Knuckles so he can engage Shadow. While Tails does have the mind for such a fight, countering most of the black and red Hedgehog's blows, he still lacks the immense raw physical strength of Sonic and Knuckles, so each deflection costs a bit more of his stamina, and each hit that slips through his guard is extra devastating, since he's nowhere near as durable either. As a result, it is not long before the Fox Boy looks ready to keel over, but before Shadow can land the finishing blow, a spiked fist strikes him hard from behind, knocking him prone. However, that isn't possible, since the red oaf was over there. Unless Chaos Control? Rolling back to his feet with a scowl, Shadow sees that the echidna is indeed holding out the Chaos Emerald, while his brothers cheer him on. Through gritted teeth, the ultimate life form demands to know how he did that, since this is his power. His birthright is the ultimate. Though smirking slightly, Knuckles retorts that the Hedgehog doesn't know who he is, so let him fill him in. He is the last of the Echidnas, a tribe who guarded the Master Emerald for centuries, so he knows more about the mystic powers of the emeralds than Shadow gave him credit for last time they met. But way more importantly, he's the guy who'll always have his little bros' backs, so if he had to learn a new power to look out for them, he'll do it 1,000 times over. With this declaration, he Chaos Controls again, appearing above Shadow while diving down like a corkscrewing drill, and trying to punch and dig a hole through the ground of the Black Hedgehog alike, as he drives a high-power flurry of punches into Shadow's belly over and over. But recognizing that he actually can't win in a 3v1 when they've grown as much as they have, and are even beginning to tap into Chaos Control, he makes the prudent decision to retreat for now. But before he goes, he stops the Echidna's fists and locks eyes to the Red Ruffian, commenting that this technique is not bad for a self-taught user, but he's still got a long way to go before he's on par with, or able to rival the ultimate life form. Then with the flash of light, he is gone, having Chaos Control to wait to do whatever task he'd come to the island to do before running into Team Guardian. And while Sonic and Knuckles are both tempted to give chase as they're not done with him yet, Tails ensures the cooler heads prevail, as he points out that they still have an emerald that he and his allies want, so he's certain they'll meet again. Seeing the logic in this, the elder pair acquiesce and join Tails in making their way to Biggs' fishing boat, where Team Rose are waiting for them, and it is good that they have this way off the island, as about 30 minutes later, it goes up in flames and mushroom clouds. No doubt the work of the villains, though sharing a resigned look with his brothers. Sonic sighs that he just knows they're gonna get blamed for that too. However, one exploding island is the last thing on anyone's minds, as across the world, Eggman appears on every TV to make an announcement that he has acquired the power of the fearsome Eclipse Cannon, and unless the world submits to him, he will unleash his power upon them. As a demonstration of the cannon's might, he promptly destroys half the moon, with this being enough to give the assembled world leaders pause, as they begin engaging in talks with the Doctor, since subjugation is generally considered preferable to destruction. Likewise, Teams Guardian and Rose also find themselves the shift in priorities, as now they have a duty to the entire world to stop Eggman, though they first need to find him, with Tails having the bright idea to sneak their way into the President's motorcade. Since they're lucky, he'll be in talks with Eggman, and they can reverse engineer the signal to figure out where the Doctor is. Gritting that their bro always comes up with the best plans, Sonic agrees to accompany Tails' backup, along with Amy and Cream, while Nugs and Big will lie low, since the last thing they need is for Shadow and Rouge to swoop in and steal their Chaos Emerald while they're distracted. Fortunately, it isn't terribly difficult to catch the President's limo, with Tails' hunch being correct, as when they leap in through the sunroof, they come face to face with the Doctor's mustachioed mug on the TV screen. As Sonic taunts his longtime nemesis, and Cream politely greets the President and apologizes for the intrusion, Tails gets to work, and is quickly able to determine he is aboard the Space Colony Ark, which must be where the Eclipse Cannon is housed. The only question now is how to get up there, with Amy agreeing to do do a reading when they meet up with the others, since hopefully Chaos Divination will show them the way. As this will take a little bit, Tails decides to set work on a project of his own when they return to Knuckles and Big, with Big himself helping out, since he has more of a head and intellect for tech than most people would give him credit for or assume. After a few hours, the pair emerge from their impromptu workshop, carrying several golden rings in a gem, as Tails explains that on top of making a fake Chaos Emerald to fool their enemies if they try to steal it, he has also made his best approximation of those rings Shadow wears around his wrists and ankles, since he believes they may be tools to help him harness and train his Chaos energy more effectively. So if they play their cards right and try the same thing, they may be able to gain access to the same effortless Chaos control that he has. Liking the sound of that, Sonic and Knuckles each don a set of the rings alongside Tails himself, while the Fox promises to make some more for their friends if these work, and or don't kill them, since he was short on time and figured the fake emerald was more pressing. Around this time, Amy also returns, revealing that her power showed her an Eggman base hidden in a pyramid, and figuring it is not the pyramids on Angel Island, Tails gives them their next heading. However, when they arrive, they find that the badniks guarding the place have already been smashed, with the same holding true for the one side, so that the two teams are able to make their way to the hangar with ease, where none other than Shadow is waiting for them, one hand wrapped around the slumped arm of Chaos, while his rear is planted squarely and victoriously on the Master Emerald, his aura giving off the immediate impression that he has already grown and adapted for their last bout. Fiercely, Knuckles barks at the black and red hedgehog to hand them both over right now, though cool as ever. Shadow retorts that the Echidna is in no place to be making threats. However, he is willing to oblige on one condition: they face him again in battle, wagering their Chaos Emerald against their watery friend in the Master Emerald. Scowling slightly, knowing his own duty as a guardian, Sonic urges Knuckles not to agree, since they don't know if they can trust this guy. Though interjecting, Tails counters that so far, Shadow hasn't done anything to suggest he isn't trustworthy. Quite the opposite, in fact, since he's been nothing but honest with them and has followed through on all his threats. So if he says he's willing to give the Chaos and Master Emerald back if they win, it's probably for the best if they take him at his word. Seeing Sonic's point, but agreeing with Tails on this one, Knuckles accepts, seeing the black and red hedgehog lead them all into the shuttle bound for the Space Colony Ark. Since if they're going to end things, they should do it in the place where this whole nightmare began. Curiously, Amy asks what he means by that, to which Shadow replies that he lost someone of the Ark years ago, and he requires all 7 Chaos Emeralds to fulfill her dying wish. Though as he says this, his eyes fall on Knuckles, trusting him to understand the lengths he will go to, considering their exchange in the forest. Understanding precisely, Knuckles does not repudiate his motives, though all the same, when they arrive on the Ark, he is quick to assure Shadow that even if he empathizes with his plight, he is going to be giving 110%, since his brothers are counting on him. Then with this declaration, he goes on the attack, as Sonic and Tails flank him on either side. As the only one among the group who has managed Chaos control so far, Knuckles holds on to the Chaos Emerald this time, though this is fine, as it seems Shadow has no interest in stealing it, instead wanting to win it fair and square. And more than that, to see how far the Red Ruffian has come with it, as when Knuckles makes use of his powers, Shadow is quick to match him, clashing in midair or across the battlefield in a way that even Sonic's speed or Tails' flight cannot fully keep up with. Nonetheless, this fight quickly becomes a mirror of their first one, as the brothers' synchronicity and bond boost them in a way entirely distinct from the Chaos Emeralds, with Knuckles more than once making the choice not to use Chaos control to meet Shadow, preferring the strength he gains from fighting as a part of a team to the raw individual amp of the Emerald. However, unlike their first fight, or even their last one, this clash lacks the animosity that previously drove Shadow, with things feeling more in line with a particularly intense training session back on Angel Island, rather than a life-or-death struggle. In fact, each member of Team Guardian begins to get the same impression, that Shadow may not be as bad a guy as he initially seemed, with Sonic even asking why he teamed up with a rotten old crook like Eggman to begin with, though it is not the ultimate lifeform who answers, but instead the Doctor himself, as he leers that it's because he didn't know any better. Turning to face the voice, Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Shadow all spot the Doc aboard a powerful mech, whose gun is pointed directly at Amy. While beside him, Rouge holds the Master Emerald aloft, as she gleefully gloats that she told the boys they'd bring her the gem. In a tone that makes it very clear he had nothing to do with this double cross, Shadow demands to know what the Doctor is doing, and leering maniacally, Eggman cackles that there's been a change of plans, since the truth is, he simply despises rodents, be they red, blue, yellow, or black, and since Shadow has fulfilled his usefulness, the time has come to dissolve their partnership. He then turns his eyes upon Knuckles, and orders him to turn over the last Chaos Emerald, unless he wants Miss Bros' blood on his hands. And knowing he couldn't close the distance to save her in time even with Chaos control, the Echidna warrior complies, handing the Doctor the emerald, and then following as he, his brothers, Team Rose, and Shadow are marched to to the bridge, where Eggman instructs the Guardians and Shadow to climb into a capsule, since it's only big enough for a few of them, and they're the ones he most wants done away with. Reluctantly, the brothers do as they are told. While scowling up at his former ally, Shadow tells the doctor to do his worst, since little does he know, his grand plan will be the death of him. While Knuckles adds that when they eventually get out of this, he plans to hit the doctor harder than ever before. And Sonic tricks the mad scientist into saying what, right after he speedily says fat, gross, creepy, egg-shaped loser says what, and finally tells his last words to point out to the doctor, as he has many times before, that he isn't technically a rodent, and to be more accurate, Rouge has a better reason to be in here than he does if that's their criteria for execution. But taking this as a final desperate bluff on their parts, and assuring Rouge he would never, as long as she's holding the Master Emerald that is. Eggman chortles that they'll see about that, or at least he will, as he's rigged this capsule to blow as soon as it gets far enough from the colony to avoid damaging it. Then with a final sneer, he presses the button, and the four fighters find themselves propelled into space. Running the math in his head, Tails worriedly informs the others that they only have a few more seconds before they're in detonation range, and knowing there's only one thing that can save them now, Shadow hisses that only if they had a Chaos Emerald, they could escape with Chaos Control. Helpfully, Sonic points out that they do have the fake Emerald Tails made, and while Shadow grimaces that it's not ideal, it's the best they've got, so the younger pair need to listen up, since he's going to run them through the bases of Chaos Control, as it's the only chance they have to survive. A few seconds later, the capsule explodes, with Amy, Cream, and Big openly weeping, while Chaos silently hangs his head in mourning for the trio of Guardians he had come to regard as comrades, and something like family. In contrast, Eggman has nothing but glee on his face, as he instructs Rouge to take the 7 emeralds down to the Eclipse cannon to power it up, with the Bat giving a sardonic salute before heading out. However, perhaps the Doctor should not celebrate so prematurely, a lesson he is quick to learn when Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Shadow burst onto the bridge, having managed to pull off their Hail Mary Chaos Control after all, even if it did deposit them on a different point aboard the Ark than they had intended, with Shadow admitting that he's both surprised that they're alive because that worked, and that underestimating the colorful idiots worked in his favor for once. Nonetheless, they are here now, and with Eggman's guard down, he is unable to point his gun at Amy and his other hostages in time before Sonic zips in and tears it off, freeing the other 3 and their allies to destroy the mech, leaving the madman vulnerable, as he confidently and privately replies that when it comes to Team Guardian, what you see is what you get. They're just fun-loving brothers who love adventure and kicking bad guy butt. In a tone of cold fury, Shadow then orders the Doctor to hand over the emeralds, though when the human reveals that he has already dispatched Rouge to power up the cannon, the black and red hedgehog sighs that it has already done this, in a voice somewhere between relief and resignation. Not liking the sound of that, Knuckles worriedly asks what he means, to which Shadow explains that when the Eclipse cannon is empowered with all 7 Chaos Emeralds, its light will fall from and burn the sky, exterminating humanity. This is Maria's wish. Turning to face him with matching looks of disbelief, the heroes are stern that this is what he was working towards this whole time. Though refusing to back down, Shadow looks to Knuckles and states that he should understand, to which Knuckles confesses that he does. He just finds it hard to believe that someone so precious to a guy like Shadow would ask him to do something like that. Something in the way Knuckles says this strikes a chord with Shadow, as he furrows his brow, since the Maria of his memories was not wrathful or vengeful, so why would she ask for that? At once, a new memory blossoms in Shadow's mind, a Maria asking him to bring hope, not ruin to humanity. And realizing the terrible mistake he's made, Shadow snarls that he must make amends. Unfortunately, it seems it is already too late to stop the activation of the cannon, as everyone aboard the Ark suddenly feels the ground beneath their feet start to move. Though speaking up, the 3 Guardians propose that maybe if they could get the Master Emerald where the Chaos Emeralds are, they could neutralize their power and stop the fall. Nodding that he knows the place, Shadow agrees to lead them in chaos to the core. While feeling foolish in his own right and not wanting to die, Eggman blushes that he'll provide logistical support from here by deactivating the systems that might stand in their way, while Team Rose volunteers to find Rouge and see what they can do to help. With this plan settled, they break, allowing the Guardians and Shadow to begin their scramble for the core. Surprisingly, Eggman actually makes good on his promise, shutting down defenses, while Amy and Rouge take up the comm station and relay any news to the guys that might help them. Thanks to this and their greater abilities in Cannon, they are able to make it to the core in record time. Though like in Cannon, the Bio Lizard is waiting for them, feeling a sense of responsibility for this creature, as but for the grace of God, it could have been him. Shadow stays behind to end its suffering, with Sonic backing him up to free it from its pain, while Tails, Knuckles, and Chaos move forward to an altar that looks remarkably like the one that usually houses the Master Emerald, suggesting whoever built this place must have visited Sky Sanctuary at some point. Nevertheless, when Rouge joins them and reluctantly returns to shard the Master Emerald she was hoping to sneak away, they begin to cause chant, so that a moment later, the Ark stops moving and the Chaos Emeralds rise into view, signifying the end of the conflict. Or at least, that would have been the case if not for the Bio Lizard's final failsafe, as using the Chaos Energy Drive grafted onto its body, it activates its first and last Chaos Control to merge itself with the Ark itself, becoming the final hazard, and resuming its suicidal plunge towards Earth. However, just because it has changed does not mean Shadow's duty has, with the black and red hedgehog leading Sonic over to the altar, where the Chaos Emeralds now float. Then without a word, the pair of them transcend into super forms, and fly out to confront this fearsome foe. Though this is easier said than done, as while Sonic and his brothers are stronger, so is his final hazard, whose ability for rapid growth as a prototype ultimate life form has allowed it to rise to the level of its opponents, and then perhaps even beyond them, as through blasts of the Eclipse Cannon, it is able to keep the two hedgehogs at bay, while up on the bridge, Amy receives a troubling vision. If Sonic and Shadow continue fighting as they are now, then win or lose, they will not have the strength to return to the Ark, and will plummet to their deaths. Relaying this to Tails and Knuckles, she urges them to go and help their brother, and knowing they can't waste a second, the pair lay their hands on the Master Emerald and activate their own hyperstates before going to join the battle. At once, the tide begins to turn, as by standing united, the four heroes are able to start pushing the scientific monstrosity back. However, they are still yet to gain a decisive advantage, and with Earth's atmosphere drawing closer and closer, they all know the time is running out. Thankfully, Tails does have one idea inspired by his brother's lifting of Angel Island, since if he used his Chaos Spark just right, he may be able to use the mechanical nature of the Ark to hold it in place, even if only for a little while. In a showing of their faith in him, Sonic and Knuckles do not hesitate with their agreement, promising to make the most of this aid. Then as Tails taps into the very depths of his Chaos abilities, they form up around him. To the Fox Boy's credit, both as a tactician and a Chaos Energy user, this plan works, with the Ark coming to a screeching halt, as Tails holds it aloft through sheer willpower and brilliance alone. The one creature who is not impressed is the final hazard, who appears to snap his jaws around the yellow menace, having felt his chaos power spike. However, holding true to his own ideals, Knuckles quickly steps in, activating his chaos shield. Though in a testament to his own growing prowess, it does not just manifest as a bubble this time, but instead, something like a giant torso made of energy, with one of his strong arms and spiked fist poking out the side for good measure. Grinning wickedly, as his time bickering and tussling with his brothers gives him a devious idea, Knuckles reaches out and wraps his spectral arm around the final hazard's outstretched neck, catching it in a headlock, while also leaving its vulnerable energy sacs exposed. Knowing what they have to do, Sonic and Shadow charge, becoming a pair of golden comets as they streak through the sky. Then as they strike the pulsating protrusions, the final hazard meets its end. With the threat now truly over, the quartet then bunch together once more, and begin channeling the last of their energy for their final chaos control, which they need to generate an immense burst of energy, far more than they used before, or even in canon, to propel the massive Ark back into its proper stable orbit, a distance and feat far greater than just holding it in place or slowing its fall. But as they channel the emeralds, a terrible realization hits the three Guardian brothers. Tails' Chaos Spark efforts, Knuckles' sustained Chaos Shield, and Sonic's relentless striking have drained them to the absolute limit. They do not have enough combined energy to execute the maneuver and survive the subsequent drop, much less make their way back to the Ark, and there is no need for them all to die. Already on one accord of what their choice must be, since as Guardians, they've always promised to face the end together, Knuckles speaks for all of Team Guardian, or rather his brothers, as he tells Shadow that he has no choice but to survive and keep moving forward, because Maria's dream is now his, and so is theirs. So as the ultimate life form, he better be able to handle the burden, because they sure as heck believe he can. Then, without waiting for Shadow's stunned reply, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles focus their remaining life force and the last remnants of their super and hyper transformations into Shadow and the Ark, as he is suddenly overwhelmed by the raw flow of power, and what's more, the warm feeling of unity, acceptance, and safety that comes with it. Before then using his mastery over chaos control, a brilliant column of light erupts from the four of them. The Ark shudders, then lurches violently, beginning its rapid ascent back into orbit. As the light begins to fade, Shadow finds himself triumphant, suspended by the spent Chaos Emeralds. As his quills darken back into base form, he looks reluctantly down to see the forms of his three companions below him, and growing farther away by the second, Tails' golden fur dulls back to yellow, his twin tails drooping as the light around him vanishes, while Knuckles' hyperstate fades, and he slumps while protectively trying to hold his brothers, his ghostly arm dissolving completely. Finally, Sonic, the fastest thing alive, slows, the gold fading from his quills as well, leaving him a motionless, shrinking blue speck huddled amongst his brothers, as they disappear into the next great adventure, cementing themselves as the ultimate heroes and guardians, while a broken-hearted and overwhelmed black hedgehog hangs in the void next to the stabilizing Ark. His knees buckle, and he falls to the surface of his bridge along with the Chaos Emerald. Up on the bridge, Chaos, Amy, Rouge, Big, and Cream rush towards the docking bay, expecting to greet a victorious and joyful quartet, but they find only one, as Shadow slowly rises, gripping his fists until his knuckles turn white. He is alive, he is saved, as is the world, but the three who gave him his freedom, who taught him what it meant to fight for others, how to correctly fulfill Maria's dream, they're gone. And so Shadow the Hedgehog looks up at the earth, now safe and blue again, and he remembers Maria's face, but superimposed along with it, and forever carved in his mind, are the determined grins of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, whom in the honor of, he can only offer one last sayonara, my friends. But that is where we'll be leaving our story off for right now.